Thank you. So, Trevor is 85, and Dorothy is 92. And Trevor and Dorothy have lived in the same village for their entire lives. And, well, not quite their entire lives. So Trevor was actually relocated from Coventry. They live in the East Midlands during the war. And anyway, they, when they left school, they both joined the same factory, a sock factory. And that's where they met, and they settled down, they got married, and their village at the time had a couple of butchers, a couple of shops, it had 3 churches, 3 clubs, kind of social clubs. It was a real thriving community. And over time, that village changed, that village went backwards. And eventually, we had one of the churches left, and it was converted to a private residence. And we had one shop, just a spa, kind of a soulless type spa. And Trev, he's still in great form, and he's still in great health. And he takes one of his neighbour's dogs for a walk. He's been in this village for the best part of 85 years, probably 78, 80 years. And one day, he goes missing. And he goes missing for a while. And the reason he went missing for a while was that he actually got lost. He got stuck in a cul-de-sac in a brand new estate that's been built on the village in which he's lived for the best part of his life. Trev doesn't suffer with any of the kind of ailments you normally get with many old folks and so on and so forth. He was fine, he still walks a dog, no problem. Now Ron's a mate of mine, he was a mate of mine, sadly he passed away a couple of years ago. And Ron, he lived in this little 16th century cottage in the Colby Valley. And we'd see a lot of Ron, and every Christmas Eve I'd go down and see Ron, have a few beers, not too many because he's on tablets. And then we'd have a bit of cake and a bit of a chat and talk about the old days, and he'd tell me a lot about his life. And this one day, on this one Christmas Eve, it followed up 6 months after I'd actually, unfortunately, had to take a cat that had lived part with Ron and part with us to the vets. And sadly, we lost the cat. And of course, me being a sentimental old soul and a guy who's been in the tech space for quite a lot of years, what did I do? I kind of made a PowerPoint of the cat's life as sort of a tribute to this cat's courage in coming from nowhere over a 5-year period, getting closer and closer to our house, and deciding to move in with us and with Ron. He lived part with us and part with Ron. So I'm sat there this Christmas Eve after the cat's passed away, and I'm sat there having beers and having a bit of cake with Ron. And I'm sat in his rickety little chair in his cottage. The door, he didn't even lock the door. And I said to Ron, Ron, I've got something to show you. He said, what's that? And I reached down below and I pulled out my laptop. And he looked at me and he said, what's that? I said, it's a laptop, Ron. It's a computer. Bear in mind, this is like 2014. He said, I've heard of them. I've never seen one before. This is like 2014. He'd never seen a computer. Now, if you think of the lives that Trevor and Dorothy and Ron have lived, 1920s-ish, they were born, through to, thankfully, Trevor and Dorothy are still with us, Ron's passed away, until like 2005, 2010, 2015. The changes they've seen in their life is extraordinary. There was more in common with their lives in the 1920s with the Middle Ages than with our age now. They've seen cars arrive and proliferate. They've seen black and white TV. They've seen colour TV. They've seen the advent of package holidays that suddenly saw the world really shrink. And they've kind of lived through, but almost not noticed, the PC revolution. Trevor didn't have GSM. So, when we think about our lives, if we believe the experts, the dramatic transformation that they saw in their lives is possibly nothing compared to the transformation that we will see across the period of our lifetimes. And if we start to just think back, most of us can probably think back to businesses in the 90s and the shape of them and where they are today. So if we think about organisation structures, footprints, if we think about the corporate footprint, it's kind of gone from a head office, maybe 2, 3, 4 small branch offices. The footprint has gone to a completely complex picture, because we've got remote workers, and we've got gig workers, and we've got loads of subbies, and we've got partners with these people, and not many people come into the office, and we've got hot desking and so on and so forth. So the footprint has kind of changed. And then we think about our organisation structures, and you think about the role of the CEO, and we think about the old style CEO and the new style CEO. And the old style CEO, in many ways, was kind of hierarchical, do as I say, passing down instructions. That was kind of the old style CEO. If you believe the experts, the CEO today needs to be inspiring a vision, creating a movement, and sherpering the people, this culture they've created, this society, this tribe, sherpering them to the corporate destination. So there's a mindset for CEOs that needs to be adopted now, if you believe the experts, to essentially become more of a servant to people rather than a manager or administrator of people. And you think about middle managers. Middle managers are in a terrible spot, really, because middle managers, their traditional roles has always been taking instructions from on high and passing them down below, and then taking information from down below and passing it up on high, and aggregating information, getting spreadsheets and reports and putting all this stuff together. That's kind of been their jobs. And slowly but surely that's getting boiled out. Slowly but surely, analytics, packages, repeated downsizing is taking out that layer of management. And then people who are being managed by the middle managers, by the senior managers, they've seen a dramatic change. They've seen jobs for life, social contract, pension, holiday, take the weekends off. They've seen that shift, and they've kind of seen it shift to always on, not much loyalty, bit of anxiety because, you know, am I still going to have my job in X, Y, Z? They've seen that change. And then you think about the IT systems, and the IT systems in the organisations, they've shifted from owned, proprietary type systems, on-premise, protected, to kind of porous and open and unsecured, kind of risky. Bring your own device, plug that in. And then you really start to think about how we communicate. And the ways we communicate is kind of starting to change. So we don't actually contact people anymore. We reach out to them, or we ping them. Yeah? For us, as individuals, our world has transformed, and if you believe the experts, it's going to change an awful lot more. So if we think back to what's happened to different industries, what we can do, and it's good and bad. It's like, you know, flip the coin, positive one way, positive the other. Depends on how you look at things. And for us, we have a number of choices. We have choices about how we address new technology. We could go down the industry route. We could say, well, what's happened to newspapers? Well, newspapers ended up going from dumping newspapers at 3 o'clock in the morning in the pouring rain outside newsagents to, would you like a free paper, sir or madam? To paper-free papers. So that's what's happened to the newspaper industry. We can book whatever travel we want, at any place we want, at a price we want, at a time we want, ourselves. How many travel agents do you see on the high street these days? Not that many. It's a choice for us to go out and book or to operate as a travel agent. That's a choice for us. It's a choice for us to start a newspaper business, or start a business, or work in a business, or have the skills to work in a business that fits and meets the modern age. That's a choice for us. There's an awful lot of talk and an awful lot of doom and gloom around the prospect of jobs in the future and where's it going. And if you believe the experts, we got to where we got to because of 50 years of shareholder value. 50 years of shareholder value, squeezing costs out of the system, squeezing energy, squeezing passion, squeezing inspiration out of our corporate systems so we can provide returns to shareholders. And at the same point, we had consumerism, we had celebrity culture encouraging us to spend more money, so we're desperate to hold on to our jobs and make sure that we could fund this particular lifestyle. And we had technology driving it. And I don't see an end to the constant bombardment of consumerism to us, and I don't see an end to shareholder value. But I do see a bit of an end of the road for individuals who are not prepared to stick the head above the parapet and say, maybe it's time to change. Maybe it's time to look at some new things. I do see an end to that environment. And the reason I say that, if you believe the experts, excuse me while I get a drink of water. If you believe the experts, we're in the midst of a perfect storm. And this perfect storm is great connectivity, and we're about to get 5G rolled out. We've all got a smartphone. We know about analytics. Much of what's happened to date has been around the connection of us. Mobile phones, the internet. That's been much of the driver of what's happened today. And I've kind of seen this stuff firsthand. I've seen it firsthand because I joined an organisation that was one country, 100 people, and it was about $100 million turnover, but the previous year it had been about 20 million turnover, and the previous year it had been about 6 million turnover. And it grew over a period of time, over 20 years, to over 80 countries, 6.5 billion turnover, 8,500 people around the globe. And why did it grow so quickly? It grew through acquisition, and it grew through being in the right space. And the right space was IT networking at the time. It was Cisco's biggest distributor, one of Cisco's biggest systems integrators, a consultant that could operate around Cisco. We owned a whole bunch of businesses. So I've seen at first hand very dramatic change. And I really didn't understand it at the time. So when I joined IT, I didn't really know what was coming. I didn't know much about the IT market. But what's unfolded over that 20 years has been quite extraordinary. And if you believe the experts, what's about to unfold is immense. Because what's about to unfold, and Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Google, are all spending hundreds of billions of, not hundreds, billions of dollars. And VCs are in Silicon Valley, in Sao Paulo, in Shenzhen in China, at this new technology. And these new technologies, which are potentially going to dramatically change the way each and every one of our businesses works and operates, are on our doorstep. They're about to hit us in the next few years. And it's driven by this perfect storm, the perfect storm of connectivity. Chips are faster, cheaper, smaller. We have much more acceptance of this idea of cloud, so that now we hold our photographs in the cloud, and we rent our IT equipment as a service in the cloud. We rent it instead of buying it. So all of these changes have happened, which have kind of pushed down our resistance to some of this change and have enabled a whole bunch of new things. Just in the last year or 2 years, computers have been able to recognize images better than human beings can recognize images. Computers have been able to understand audio calls to the same level, the same standard of accuracy as humans can understand audio. So all of a sudden, there's a huge number of applications as a result of that. There's robot technology, and probably the biggest driver is blockchain, whatever that is. But also, probably the biggest driver is not connecting us as individuals, but it's connecting things. And all of a sudden, we're starting to connect things. And those things are involved in processes. So in not too far a distant future, they're also working on glasses, by the way. So instead of using phones, they're using glasses. So they're starting to work on glasses. which are producing holograms. So we could potentially be in a virtual conference. And if you think about how we've seen our meetings go to audio conferences, go to video conferences, we're going to eventually, very soon in all likelihood, start to see virtual conferences. Conferences where we're sat there and we're looking over in the corner and we're saying, is that a hologram or is it a real person? We don't quite know. That's where this technology is kind of going, it's kind of taking us. And if we also look at the prospect of robots stacking shelves, we already work for the supermarkets, we scan our goods out, don't we? When we go and buy them. We already work for every supplier that we want to buy from on the internet, because they want to make sure that not only are we their loyal servant, but also not a robot. Right? They say, tick this box if you can see a traffic light, tick this box if you can see a car or a building or a shop or whatever it might be. So we already are starting to operate ourselves along the same lines as a robot. They're trying to figure out, are you a robot or you're a person? This is the world we're kind of entering. And there's a lot of doom and gloom. An awful lot of doom and gloom about this change. People say, what's it going to mean for me? And it's quite unsettling and so on and so forth. But I don't really buy that. I take a look at Ron's life and Dorothy and Trevor's lives, and I see how they have been enhanced over the years. Ron, in the last year of his life, was pretty well confined to his kitchen and his bedroom. That's pretty much it. He lived in the rural countryside, didn't really have any family, but he would get immense joy out of the Animal Channel, whatever it's called, on Sky. He would just watch animal programme after animal programme after animal programme. When he started watching telly, it was black and white and 3 terrestrial channels, right? So, Dorothy, when she speaks to her niece in Australia, she does it through a lovely little tablet and screen. It's immense. When I lived in Australia, 20 odd years ago, I'd be down the bottom of what was called Kensington Road in Melbourne in a little call box, throwing dollars in at 2 o'clock in the morning, talking to my parents and getting bitten by mosquitoes. It was fantastic because I actually discovered that after about $5 it stopped taking more dollars. So it was quite handy because I did get my dad to put the radio on next to the phone to listen to the Merseyside Derby one year, which was magnificent. I didn't have to get bitten that day, right? But now I wouldn't have to do that, right? I just go on YouTube and find some channel somewhere that's, relaying some other channel showing the Merseyside Derby somewhere else in the world. So the opportunities for us created by new technology, they're positive and they're negative, right? It's 2 sides of the coin. Glass half full, glass half empty. And for us, there's tactics, I think, that we can take that will put us, because nobody really knows what's going to happen. None of the experts know where this is going to end up. So we can get all depressed about these changes, or we can get excited about these changes, and we can embrace these changes. And what can we do to take this on? And I think to take this on, we can invest in a few things. And I think the first thing we can invest in is cognition. Our ability to think, our ability to organise thoughts, our ability to stand back detached from the situation and say, what's actually going on here? Am I going to become a victim of these changes, or am I going to proactively do something about it? And what's amazing is all these boffins in Silicon Valley, they're spending, and all these VCs, they're spending hundreds of billions of dollars to create artificial intelligence based on neural networks, which is how the brain operates. We've already got them. We have the device here, right? This muscle. So investing in cognition, investing in self-awareness, investing in knowing what our strengths are, investing in knowing whether we, for example, are, because all of us tend to be aligned to one side of the spectrum or the other side of the spectrum. And if we tend to be a left brain, task-oriented, get this done, pragmatic type person, in this new world, we need to be a tiny bit more people-focused. Tiny bit more creative in our thinking, imaginative in our thinking. That's what we need to do. If we are the other side of the equation, and we're more people-focused, and we never ever get anything completed, and we're all excited, and we're emotional, or whatever, we need to move a tiny bit to the left, and just get a tiny bit more logical, and throw ourselves at some of the logic. And that's just about training our brain. The second thing we can do is invest in capability. Invest in trying out this new technology to the extent that we have. And we all have different levels of comfort. You know, my dad said, I'm never going near it, and he's in his 70s now. And about 2 years ago, he turned around to me and he said, "Son, can I have a word with you?" I said, "Yeah, sure." He said, "Me and your mother have been thinking, maybe we have got a few more years left on this planet, and maybe we are going to get involved in some new technology. So we bought them, can you help us?" So we bought them a tablet, we got them connected, and they're loving it. And every time I see them for a coffee, it's like more instruction, because they're getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into it. They're still not confident enough they actually want to start sending emails or anything like that. They don't want it, they don't want to be bothered. That's their level of comfort. So all of us will have different levels of comfort with technology. All of us will have different levels of comfort with social media, for example. Some of us will simply use YouTube to watch some videos or whatever. Others of us will use Facebook and share stuff with our friends. Some of us might want to put some photographs up on Instagram, but don't want to comment on them. Other people want to comment and get involved in debates. That's for us. But I would say for all of us, try things out, and as new things emerge, try them out, and get as comfortable as we can with them, because it's going to really help us. Thankfully, good healthcare, and on the flip side, two sides to every coin, on the negative side, ever diminishing pensions and ever pushed out retirement dates means we've kind of got most of us operate in this workplace that's going to keep changing and changing quite dramatically. So if we invest in our cognition and invest in our capability, the more we know, and we go and find out, and where people are lagging behind, we try and drag them along and help them along. And when people know more than we do, we pick their brains and we chat to them, we go to conferences and we get suppliers in and we ask what's available. Because generally, the businesses that don't adopt the new technologies will find it's too costly for them to continue to operate. So you have to start to do it. What we've seen through all dramatic changes is many businesses perish. The third thing, when we've got a change project, and this works whether it's for our lives, whether it's for a change project, whether it's running a business, there's 5 principles we can always go back to. 3 mechanical ones. The mission. What is it we're trying to achieve, whether it's a project or our business or our life? What is it we're trying to achieve? The second thing, where do we want to get to? Say in 3 years' time, our vision. What do we want our life or our business or this project to look like? And our strategy, high-level steps, how do we get there? You know? And of course those high-level steps then break out into more detailed steps. But we can make those mechanical decisions. But there's 2 more that we've really got to think about in whatever we do. And the first is all about people, the second is as well. But the first one is so important. It's purpose. It's why are we trying to do? Why are we trying to change this process? Why do we run this business? What are we trying to do these changes to our lives for? And if we have a purpose that's about making the world a better place, or other people's lives a better place, or our life better, then that's going to motivate us and drive us on. But if our purpose is at any point, if we run a business and it's all about the directors making a ton of money, or just making a return so I can be selfish and going out, whatever, then it's not really going to work. So purpose needs to be about making the world a better place. And the second thing is just thinking very clearly about how do we want to behave along the way? How do we want to communicate? What we say, when we say it, how we say it, what we do, when we do it, how we do it. How we act, how we want to act. The choices we make, because they lock us in. the time we give to things and people, the attention we give to things and people. So investing in these cornerstones will help us along the way. And I think the fourth C that I'm going to ask us to think about investing in is connected with the first one, cognition. And I'm going to cover that by ending on a story. So I grew up in Llandudno until I was 7, and then we moved to Chester, to Blacon. So I was confused. I'm a passionate Welshman, but now I'm living in Chester, across the border. And I started with my dad watching Chester Football Club. I can see him shaking his head. Jeff's shaking his head here. So I started watching Chester, and I got to know the commercial manager, a guy called Trevor Ray. And Trevor said, well, why don't you help the guy who does the does the announcements? That's fine, great, I'll do it. And this was at a place, Chester used to have a ground called Sealand Road, for any of you remember it. And so anyway, the guy who did this, did the announcements, I would get the half-time scores for him. Lovely fella. He had a bit of a sense of humour. And I don't know whether anyone of you here know, some people may do, but there's quite a rivalry between Chester and Wrexham. And the lad who did the announcing, he used to say things like, well, they haven't got any half-time scores for you yet, but here's some scores from last season. Wrexham 0, Crystal Palace 2. And of course the crowd will be laughing, right? So it's just, yeah, making the crowd laugh. That's fantastic. So anyway, one day he did this, and the chairman of Wrexham was a guest at Sealand Road, unbeknown to him. So they sacked him, and he asked me to do the announcements. So it was in a corner office at Sealand Road, and it had like a massive window. The Sealand end was there, the Ian Rush stand was there. And I was so nervous, I'd get below the level of the window so no one could see me when I was doing the announcements. The records used to stick, and people used to cheer when we sort of moved the needle on the record. And this one day, the club secretary rang me up, and he said, we've had a set of keys handed in. He said, can you do the announcements? I said, yeah, no problem. So I said, ladies and gentlemen, club secretary's informed me we've had a set of keys handed in. If you go to the club secretary's office and describe any keys that you might have lost, then obviously he'll hand them over. Didn't think anything more of it. Fantastic. Did my announcements. Pretty awful. Probably the worst announcers I've ever had. Did it for a year. Walked home. Got to my front door. They were my keys. And I think for us, in this new world, we need to be very conscious of our situation. We're going to get hit with new information, like I did with the keys. And if we don't take on board what's happening, we need to be careful. Because if we're not careful, then we'll lock ourselves out of future employment, we'll lock ourselves out of the market. So at that juncture, I'm going to hand you back over to Mark.
Thank you very much, Rob. Thank you.